Captives of a Concept, Chapter 5, entitled, The One Mistake All Jehovah's Witnesses Have Made. All those who are now Jehovah's Witnesses have failed to carefully examine the Watchtower's claim of being God's faithful and discreet slave organization should be based on what Russell and Rutherford had been teaching down till 1919, because that year Matthew 24 verses 45 through 47 was fulfilled. Jesus Christ examined them and he appointed them over all his belongings and the domestics. But Jehovah's Witnesses don't get the sense of this because they don't look at this the same way Jesus Christ would have looked at the witnesses from the time period that he examined them for 18 months from 1918 to 1919. And there's a scripture at 1 Thessalonians 5:21 that tells Jehovah's Witnesses and all Bible readers to make sure of all things. But they fail to make sure of the most important thing, that the society is claiming to have received this appointment in 1919. And that's where basically all Jehovah's Witnesses have made a mistake. And the author mentions that this isn't just a little mistake, it's a big mistake. Because for once people come to believe, once people come to believe that the society is appointed by Jesus Christ in 1919, they become captives of the illusionary concept that all of God's direction to mankind comes only through the Watchtower Society. It then dominates and controls the thinking of those who write the literature as well as the witnesses who read it. Our first subpoint is how their Bible study program leads to this mistake. It mentions that the Bible study program is set up in such a way that Bible students become convinced that it is God's organization before they ever get to discussing Matthew 24 verses 45 through 47. And he mentions the book Knowledge That Leads to Everlasting Life. That book has been replaced by the book entitled What Does the Bible Really Teach? And I'm using the 2015 revision. And I did a word search for the word organization, and it appeared 5 times. None of those times did it reference God's or Jehovah or the Watchtower organization. But on page 183, it does make this very interesting statement. Quote, from the Bible Teach, What Does the Bible Really Teach? Page 183. Quote, remember too that you have made a dedication to Jehovah God himself, not to a work, a cause, other humans, or an organization. Or an organization. Your dedication and baptism are the beginning of a very close friendship with God, an intimate relationship with him. So they don't even discuss that scripture, their appointment in the Bible study program leading to baptism. I guess it's automatically indoctrinated prior to getting baptized that this is God's organization, when really if they do a history study instead of a Bible study program, it will become clearly evident that this is not God's organization. So Bible students have no reason to question this assertion, because it's simply stating something that they already believe in, something that they're already indoctrinated in. So it's just that what they already believe isn't true, and that's the sad part about it. What they're putting their stock in the rest of their lives is not true at all. The next subpoint, how to avoid making this mistake. Well, it's much easier to avoid this mistake than it is to correct it. Before considering their offer of a Bible study, a person should ask for a history study in order to find out if this fact about the organization is true. But those who do a history study first typically don't ask for a Bible study later. Witnesses who do a history study after they were baptized realize that they should have done it before. So it doesn't register with Jehovah's Witnesses that if the society could pass a food at the proper time examination by Jesus Christ today, it means that they would have failed the same exam in 1919, because so much of what they have been teaching then is not what they are teaching now. As a matter of fact, most of it is complete opposite of what they were teaching back then. So either they failed the exam today and passed it in 1919, or they passed it in 1919 and are now failing today. So if Jesus returned in 1919, as they say, they would pass that portion of his exam today based on what they teach today, because that's what basically the witnesses are teaching. New light, it's progressive. We got to keep up with Jehovah's celestial chariot. It's on the move constantly. But in essence, they would have failed in 1919 based on what they're teaching today. So honestly, the time to pass an exam is when you're taking it, not several years later or after the exam is already over. So up to this point, the question has been, is the Watchtower Society God's organization? Once that question is answered, and for me personally, once I got to this point in the book, I could answer certainly it was not God's organization. This concept of organization then does not really exist in reality. It's just an illusion that exists only in the minds of Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's so true. You can talk to anyone else at any Christian denomination and ask them about organization, and they will give you a puzzled look, because organization only exists in the minds of Jehovah's Witnesses. And the organization that does exist is the Watchtower's organization, which is not governed by Jesus Christ from heaven, but is governed by a few old men in Brooklyn, New York, that call themselves the faithful and discreet slave and the governing body. So this is going to conclude chapter 5. Please stay tuned for the next chapter. Thank you for taking time to watch and listen to this presentation. Post your comments, like and share this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for the next episode.